Welcome, Kyle. And I feel weird saying welcome to you because you and I see your close ally, Jeremy Boxer, also joined us today. You were someone that I felt very welcomed by in my earliest days of really kind of bringing all my attention into this space, that you guys were creating space and your own events in a sort of earlier, quieter time, arguably, of where we are now. So you've been such a great sort of person I learned from. And every time I see you at events, I'm always excited to know that you've returned from keto to to check in with us over here in the North America. But just to kind of introduce you to to people that don't know you, you've been a product builder, an AI strategist, a serial founder. That for the last 20 years you've been at the intersection of design, storytelling, and technology. That you did help build Apple's first mobile apps in the early days with the inception with Deloitte Digital,
See the
including.
gray?
Sorry.
See the gray?
Yeah. And just really early days to those big waves that have affected us. And I also think this is such a cool feature that you were a toy designer who helped invent the Funko Pop toy line. I'm pretty sure is the most impactful thing you've done in my life, but besides helping me learn about AI. But you're so close to the edge of innovation. You've been, now you're working at two fronts since 2021. You've been leading Demystify.ai, where you embed directly with leadership and creative and production teams to teach and build AI systems, including workflow automations and Agentic copilots. You do a lot of education, and also currently, as you've already told us, you are a nomad for the last 10 years that occasionally comes back to places like LA, because you are currently in a treehouse at the foot of a volcano outside of Quito, Ecuador, with a
Yeah,
llama, a donkey, and a
life's
dog. So all of those things make me think you are the most interesting person for the next hour. So I'll turn it over to you if you want to introduce yourself. But obviously, we're going to learn about you. But I think you also had something you were working on that you wanted to share with us today.
Yeah. I mean, first, thanks for having me that we can finally officially make this happen. Again, it was such a treat just getting to see the inception of machine cinema from the Gen Jams and just rallying people in the times of like the strikes and trying to convince people that AI is a topic to pay attention to and gather around. So really hats off to both you and Min for, continuing to drive it and really build a very vibrant community, in the threads all the time. So such a pleasure to finally be here and share a little bit about my story and what I'm working on and the types of things I nerd about and types of things I teach and hopefully bring it all together to where people can take some stuff away from here and yeah, really find usefulness. I think that's my big mission overall is just, there's still a gap between interesting and useful. And a lot of my work and like the demystified client work is just how to make these tools and systems more useful relative to where we're at. Obviously, it's changing day by day, but that's
We
my
talk
mission.
about what do you talk about useful? I think we love innovative. People love creative in our spaces. It sounds like you're really leaning into something when you say that.
Yeah. So when we're working with this magical black box, this, new genie, there's a lot of, oh my God, it can do this, and so that is super thrilling to see how humanity, through its ingenuity and technology and all of it, is coming together to create something that truly feels magical. Faster because of its speed, because of its depth, because of the unexpected often brings that sense of novelty. And even rewinding to just like the simple uses of treating AI more as like the oracle of like you know reflect back to me this thing is you can read the outputs, you can see the outputs, and you could just be wowed by like, wow, like machines are doing this for me now, right? But how's that moving the needle at the end of the day? Is that just absorbing more of your attention into going into rabbit holes of, oh, what else can it do? How much of that are you actually starting to build a little system around so that it's really moving the needle to like bring in more clients and build a bigger brand and so it's there's a gap I find in the skillfulness because a lot of these tools are so deceptively simple now, right? So we're presented with very simple interfaces that because people can share a few words in a certain way they can get something that looks like they're making progress, but underneath it, there's room to be a lot more knowledgeable and skillful with what to connect to, how to shape things, how to structure your communication, all of the above. So I try to just help with that gap, that skillfulness gap. I can't hear you.
And I'm back. I mean, in terms of like maybe I do think that sort of moment in the app store, so to speak, these early mobile apps, like that feels like such a massive milestone for so many people even here who's either worked or experienced that. It does feel like we're at a similar paradigm shift over the last couple of years. And I wonder, is that a perspective you bring to your work in terms of like that usefulness that you're talking about? Like that was clearly the app stores, it's, explosion of utility with these iPhone things. Are you feeling that type of parallel right now? I mean, minimally the investment level and, some equivalent of a investment revolution is happening, but do you feel that as well, or is that maybe that analogy doesn't land for you?
Totally lands. I mean, I think there's two sides. When I think of usefulness, it's based on what is my goal, the what, and why do I have that goal? So, two sides of this, I think, coming together makes something more useful. We can get caught in the weeds just focusing on the what all day long. And so much of our rat race is focusing on who does what better, faster, cheaper, right? And so there's a lot of availability now with these tools, with both the models, but now integrating these systems together. I mean, just watching what's happened with agents in the last 3 to 6 months versus pre last three, time to that, and like what it means to be an agent is also evolving. So there's the skillfulness to how to take full advantage of where we're at today so that we're spending less time having to shape its intent, feed it back to each other, keep iterating on it and eventually get to where we're going. Um, for example, like the ability to create skills or slash commands within talking to these things. In a simple, like a couple characters, you can generate a massive instruction that's not just bloated, but like very tactical without having to be a master prompter all the time, right? Or the way that you would leverage an LLM to start with intent, with an instruction. I'm going to give two tools here to the community that I've created for this process, but just the ability to take a little bit of intent, a little bit of guidance through that intent, and then get to where you can start with that master prompt. So it's like, how are we working smarter, not harder? I think a lot about and every time I go into a client situation, it's like everybody wants to get to chopping as quick as possible. And we are shortening that timeline before how quickly these tools and agents are to start chopping for us, but sharpening the axe, right? Like building the system around the model and cultivating the model in the right way so that if you set it up in the right way, you just get to lean back further and further and further, and it's doing more and more. Then there's the why. And I think a large part about what I do that's woven into how I work, both for myself, my projects, and also clients, is I see myself in the intersection between AI and AI.
Hmm.
Ancestral intelligence to artificial intelligence. And
Mm.
I think that this is like a bigger picture around this is a paradigm shift mirror moment of what does it mean to be human? And what do we want to protect and not give away to the machine to do? What is sacred? Big questions, important questions, right? And so we need to figure out individually for ourselves and how we want to work, and then the teams that we build, and then the culture and society that we're creating as the reflection of what are we holding as sacred versus what can the model do? What can the tool do that we give away that is sacred? So I think there's a tension there. And so when we get to the why, I do try to surface the like, well, let's go deeper into like why do you even have these tasks? Like where are you even pointed? Where did you even get that idea that that's your orientation and North Star? What are your guiding principles and values? What are you filtering for to where you keep steering towards the businesses that you're building, the products that you're creating to solve what problems, So yeah.
I mean, I'm almost at the risk of I want to get into your tool. That's something but I think just because you bring up the sacred point, I just want to flag that one of my favorite interactions with you was at your great partner and all this stuff, Jeremy Boxer, the CogX event from a couple of years ago here in LA that he helped
Mhm.
organize, or,
Killed it.
or your consciousness panel. We
Uh,
could suddenly get lost down this rabbit hole, but I think just to connect the dots, I think what you're referring to as sacred, as a question about what's sacred, it's very interesting to. revisit some of the points you guys were talking about in that panel, and I'll just say one of my big takeaways. I think it was something that either you or Jeremy White brought up was this idea of like, well, what's left for what being human's all about, and it was this idea of like the things we wonder about, the things that we still don't know, is that category, and this speaks to a lot of people that really focus on the curiosity and imagination muscles that are becoming specialized. Is that where your notion of sacredness is headed? Like that, how do we either superpower those things that we're discovering are still unique, or to preserve them? Where can you connect that dot?
Have you ever seen that really horrible Adam Sandler movie called Click? I
I
think
need to go back. I think I did actually. I was on a plane.
Yeah, so I think I saw it when I was a kid, but there was something that stuck in I think the whole main mission of the movie, which was you were given a magic remote control that allowed you to fast forward the parts of your life you just didn't want to do. Right. So it's like time to do my taxes. Oh, let me hit the fast forward button. Oh, I got to take out the trash. Fast forward button. Oh, I got to cook myself dinner. Fast forward. Oh, I got to have this argument with my spouse. Fast forward button. The the hook was once you apply that fast forward button, that genie learns that's what you don't want to do, and you can never unfast forward that button again. And so by the end of the life, his whole life flashed my recollection of the movie, his whole life flashed before his eyes because at some point he just wanted to fast forward everything he thought was mundane, but it was actually all of the in between that made life what life is. And there's a really special term called kumbhaka. And kumbhaka means the quality of the space between. So, like, even in the act of like yoga or breath, there's the in breath, I'm pulling something towards me, which is like a desire, a grasp, or attachment, right? I'm making something happen for me. And then there's the exhale. What am I pushing away? What am I letting go? What am I keeping distance of? What do I have boundaries around? But that's an action of pulling in, pulling out. There's a pause in between an in breath and an out breath. There's a pause in between this meeting and that meeting. There's a pause between getting up and going to sleep. Like, what's the quality of the space in between, and how do we really find the sacredness in the mundane that actually is what makes us human? So, big picture talking about like now let's apply it to very specific things of what are we applying tools to do for us when it talks about when it's about bringing our ideas to life, when it brings when it's like how do I get something done, how do I talk to somebody, how do I give feedback, how do I look at the patterns of my conversations, of my meetings, of my like so you're all of this technology is ontological. The more we use it, the more it shapes us. If you've already noticed, you probably maybe even communicate in a different way when you're talking to somebody because you're structuring something in a way that connects. And I think a lot of using AI well mirrors to things like nonviolent communication, right? It's like the first rule of non or first pillar of nonviolent communication is your own ability to understand the intent of what you're communicating. Like, do you actually know what you're saying and why? We assume we do. Then there's the skillfulness in which to convey your needs, your boundaries, your meaning. That's the prompt in this case, or the instructions, or the boot instructions or whatever you want to apply it to. And then the mirror is like, hey, tell me back to me what you heard me say. And that's where we're aligning to like how much did the tool or the model present what I believe I communicated. So all of this is ontological to where it's like the more that we see the mirror give back to us our intent, it's going to shape how we talk to people, how we do things online, offline, all the above. So it's just really, we're very malleable, we're very adaptable. And so these things are shaping us in real time. So how to be mindful in that as you're learning and applying it.
I love that, and I think you've always kind of led with that, just action speaking louder than even your words, the way you behave in the space. Um, for some reason, it reminds me of like, I think Robert De Niro has this like comment about acting that like, the acting happens between the dialogue. That in some way, it sort of reminds me of the comment you just made about the in breath and the out breath. That there's something about that. That's where the value is. But I do want to, and I see we have at least one question from Alan. But I'd love to pivot to your tools and the things you're talking about because it'll be very interesting to see how you are such a thoughtful a practitioner in so many ways and so many different things to think how you're applying it to stuff that we may well use. Alan, do you want to, if you had a question on what we were just talking about?
It'll be informed by the tool I think we're about to see. So I'll just let him do his thing.
Okay, thanks, Alan.
What tool are we about to see?
I don't know. You tell me.
Well, so yeah, when I was originally thinking about this, I know that there's like a really broad spread of what people are experimenting with, what rabbit holes we're all going down. When I do a lot of like teaching, I'm always trying to think about the full scope. Like there's always somebody who's the expert that, I should shut up and just listen to and learn from. And then there's somebody who's like, I keep hearing agent, but like, what does it mean? Like, what does it really mean? So, a goal always is like, how to shape something in a way that kind of touches everybody, hopefully leaves something new for everybody. Um, I want to blast through just kind of a few like 101 slides, just so we're all kind of using the same language. I want to show a handful of examples on like how I'm using it. And then because let's see, requesting to buy the, oh gosh, please let me share. Um, let's see, screen to,
You can share a screen or a tab or a window. Yep, there we go. Yep.
okay, so let me pull it back up
Is
here.
there audio in this?
No,
Okay, then you're super good. And if there was audio, sometimes there's a little tab. I'll leave it to you.
yeah, no, I'm all audio here. So, yeah, I just wanted to show some like one-on-one stuff. I want to show some examples on like how I'm using it, doing it. I'll leave you with a couple tools so that it's super quick to spin something up for you guys. Um, and then because like I'm dog fooding this stuff all the time and being able to teach it and like integrate it for different clients, from like individuals trying to start a business to, I just finished up, last year, thanks to Jeremy Boxer's amazing introduction with the Felix and Paul Studios, which amazing humans, like check out their content. It's their next level. But as I'm doing all of this, I'm constantly playing with all the tools. I consider myself a very maximal generalist. I'm using 40 plus tools every month, often because I'm teaching them. But I really started to trip into, oh God, here's a real problem that I've experienced, and building alongside with a few people in the community. Um, I want to show something because I'm building an AI native studio now where I'm putting all of this agentic stuff to work on the back end and integrated into the product. And I haven't shown anybody except for maybe Jeremy Boxer and a couple of the people who are building along with me. I was like, what better way to give a little first public preview than to the machine cinema community? Okay. So yeah, real quick, and I'll give this deck too, just so that we can go very quickly through it. So no need to take too many notes. But overall, agent, it's AI's ability to become a complete digital workforce where work happens in the background while we're asleep. Like if there's just one thing you take away from agents, that's what's happening, right? And so in the last 3 months, big shifts have happened. We've gone from like these really smart autocomplete connecting to tools to fully integrated systems that are doing multi-step work, coordinating with other agents. I'm going to show you an example that I built, that are set across real tools and infrastructure. So you have these entities that are integrated, that are thinking and doing. Um, Overall, you start with a goal. Once in this case is just a screenshot today from like one of my Claude conversations. You start with your goal, and then you can see here what it's playing back to you, what it's doing, and it's telling you, you can extract these of like what are the steps that it's taking. So it's autonomously planning, it's executing multi-step actions, and it continues to loop until success or blocked. And if it's blocked, it can depending on the agent, can automatically try to learn and unblock itself. It can go and research new sources. It can add new connectors. You might have to give a button tap. It can code up new solutions. It can test and fix its own failures until you get an outcome, or it's just too blocked. Or reality check, it confidently believes it solved your problem, and then you need to review it and feed it back to itself. And so we're still very much in that phase of needing to think and have the patience for iterative development. But like one of the big unlocks with OpenClaw is its conversational nature in order to do this process, especially this phase here. the automatically learning, self-improving, unblocking itself. I think that's one of the big unlocks with OpenClaw. Major use cases everywhere. I'm not going to go into it here. Um, how is it working underneath the hood? There's a trigger, there are interactions, and there's an output. A trigger could be you manually press a button. It could be what's called a cron job, or OpenClaw calls it a heartbeat. Some call it a pulse. It's essentially a timed trigger where it wakes itself up, reads its instructions, reads what it's connected to, reads the intent, and then performs a series of actions until it goes back to sleep again. There's also like email. If maybe it's looking at all emails coming into an inbox, maybe it's looking for emails where there's a specific filter tag associated to it. That will wake itself up in order to run a process. And then the outputs could be any number of outputs from content, images, videos, text, everything that these LLMs are producing, and the platforms in which it could produce it to, whether it's the chat window that you set it up with, whether it's documents, whether it's Notion boards, whether it's Slack, emails, like whatever messaging apps. And then we also hear AI versus agent versus agentic. So I just want to quickly touch on this. So the AI is the LLM. This is what is processing the information that you're having the conversation with. The agent is the entity. This is the thing that gets built and the system that you use to where AI is observing, deciding, executing, and updating. And then agentic is how the agent behaves. It's that proactivity, being goal driven, self initiating, detects work, acts on it automatically. So when things are agentic, but you can have an agent who is not agentic. um, so an agent detecting overdue tasks and filing reports on its own is an agentic agent. When is it most useful? Well, it's useful a lot of things, but even more useful when you have a huge knowledge base, whether that's an FAQ, customer interaction logs, product catalog, document library, data, all sorts of different types of data, proprietary information, things that it can reference in order to do its work better. If you have large amounts of volume where you need it to just systematically go through all of it, and emails, social media postings, leads, data entry, reports, all of the above. So what's happening? So when you say like check my Notion board, find all overdue tasks for the Mother's Day ad project, message the team in Slack with a status update, reschedule anything past due this Friday. It's going to read its core operating instructions, check the connections, the meaning like the tools it's connected to, check the context it has, and then it will analyze the user's prompt for intent and the success criteria. Then it plans itself, then it drafts the to-do checklist. Some will even spawn sub-agents that are being orchestrated by the planner so that multiple things can happen at the same time, or a sub-agent that's tied to a lesser model. So, for example, if you're using Opus to orchestrate the plan, but then it goes down to Sonnet to write code, or even Haiku to just scrape and process information, it's going to move a lot faster and it's going to be a lot cheaper for token consumption. Sub-agents are really great for there. And then it will execute. Then you can also create the slash commands or in its instructions that can infer a lot of this. So you don't even have to be this descriptive. You could say, what's overdue with the Mother's Day ad, update the team, and then it will understand all the rest of the steps in between. So, your ability to communicate, you can just be more to the point. Um, MCP, if you're hearing this term thrown around a lot, it means a model context protocol. Essentially, it's the way in which that one system talks to another system. In this case, the LLM can connect to a web browser to search, to go into Notion, Airtable docs, or Sheets, maybe because that's where all of the brain context information lives. Google Drive or folders for offline connection. This is where like Claude Cowork and Claude Code is really great. You can go into specific folders for managing on your computer, connecting to different email, referencing, writing, reading your calendar, posting to Slack and other messaging, Zoom, Toggle. I mean, hundreds of pre-existing MCP connectors, and you can create custom, like your own for whatever tools and systems you're working. There's usually a way to connect them. They search, they read, they write, they publish, they send. Just some overall examples. I'll read like one of them. So let's say you're a community builder. You could say, go through my last 50 applicants in Airtable, score them based on the diversity criteria in my selection doc, surface the top 15 with a summary of why each fits, post on Slack in the HR group. So it's going to connect to Airtable, it's going to connect to Google Docs, it's going to connect to Slack, and it's going to run all of those steps. Let's pause. Any questions?
I love this, and it's funny. Min and I were just talking because we've been discussing agents with all the news from Luma and so many of the creative agents. But this is so great, I think, for anybody that is sort of feeling like they need a sort of a core architecture to understand this stuff. It's super helpful. But we'll pause. I know, Rob, I think you had your hand up for a little while, if it's relevant. I know we're going to jump into some tools you've built, Kyle, but go ahead, Rob. Unless your hand was just like a high five hand before.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I was just yawning. Not yawning because it's boring. Just
Sounds like
yawning because I haven't.
Okay, yeah, you're
I'm wrapped.
okay. All right. Thank you. Darth Vader joined the chat.
Did you have a thing of like prove you're not a bot before getting on this call? I'm just kidding, Rob.
I know Rob personally, so I know he's not a bot.
I
But
couldn't do it on purpose. I mean, that's pretty funny. But
cool. Alan Title, I think you had a question. Go ahead.
I hope I'm not interrupting more of your presentations. It's fascinating. It's great and essential. It's so great to be talking about agents on this in Gen Talks and in the conversation of Gen AI. I agree 100% with you on a lot of the ways you approach it. And one of the things I find when using agents is it's not about building more agents and more systems. It's about doing some of the things you're talking about with keeping lots of .md files, a lot of markdown files, lots of organizing your information and your goals and things like that. And the other thing I found is that it's really often about the harness that you put on your agents, not about building more of them. So I thought maybe you could comment on that when you're showing us more of your tools, because it's kind of an important thing to have a system that puts the guardrails up in the right way. And you seem like you'd have a lot to say about that. Thanks.
Great points. First, I want to flag for anybody who doesn't know the markdown files. So yes, they can take things like PDF files, but PDF is like presentation files. So when the robot's reading it, it could break apart where text is happening and it could get itself confused. So whenever you're importing context to any LLM, export it as a markdown file. It's just just a simple way that strips it down to a language that computers process quicker, cheaper, and more effectively. So just want to flag that on the markdown. 1000%, Alan, on the, it's not about building more and more agents, although we'll get there, and more specifically sub-agents, because I do think swarms of sub-agents are exponentially more effective than one, but the top level agents are being the orchestrators that hold the context. So the most effective agents are the ones who are going to be shaped the best with how they process memory. So, for example, when you're spinning up an agent and it spins up a new instance because, say, it's tied to Claude API, right? So you have great example, and I was going to show this in a second, where Claude just released scheduled tasks. You can open up scheduled tasks. You can set an instruction with a timer. Now it's going to run it every single time. However, it's going to create a new instance every single time. It's not an ongoing chat. So it does not have the contextual memory of a chat. It has a fresh blank slate every single time. So it has to rely on its Claude.md. It's like hard baked in instructions that's relevant to the start point every single time. Maybe somebody could feel what's happening in the chat because I can't really see it. So with the instructions, or with the bigger bots, like you want to be able to make sure that it's at some point in a conversation, if you're using an agent ongoing, you're going to see things like compacting conversation. It's going to lose context, which means it no longer exists. It's not as useful. And so you can assign ways for it to process information and store it so that no matter how much it compacts, it still retains the core identity, the core memory, the things that are most important that continues to evolve. Um, but so, and I'll show you like how I've been doing agents overall, but there's also a guy who just released, I'll share the link if it's not already in the Machine Cinema group, that has this like killer GitHub with like 55 agents that essentially goes across the entire agency, every single scope. You're not going to be deploying all of them. It's like what are you spending the most time on right now that you want to free up time doing? What stage are you at? And just, stay super focused. Do you want to field anything from the chat? It sounded like there was some good stuff.
It almost sounds like there's like sub
I hear
conversations
him
that
too.
are just some debates about context windows. But I'm inclined to, unless somebody wants to jump up with a question, I'd love to jump into the tools too.
Yeah. Let me find this channel.
Well, I do have a question. If I could jump in.
Please do. Yeah.
Oh, basically, based from our previous conversation, Fred, where do you think this is going, Kyle? Like, what comes after this? I guess like now, let's say that I have automated everything for myself, which I have been doing with OpenClaw and with Manus and Poke and a few others. Then what happens when everybody I know on this call, everybody I know in my community now has that? What comes after that? Do you have theories on that? Do you have theories on where this is going, etc.?
Hopefully we're all like,
The floor comes up again, like, right? Like we keep having these moments at night where the floor just came up and now we're all standing at a new altitude. That's how I even hear Ben's question.
I mean, hopefully we're outside, like walking around, like, raising families or making music or just playing. I mean, that's sort of like the dream is like the irony, right? It's like the more that we're able to automate and do, the more we should be able to step away from the screen and have more time in the life that we want to create. I'm currently in a phase where I'm like the complete opposite because I'm like, there's not enough time in the day. I was like looking at what planets have longer day cycles that I can move to just like try to squeeze it all into. I think Venus would be my choice. It's like over 1100 Earth days into one day. But essentially it's like, yeah, it's so exciting right now. And is this excitement a phase we're gonna normalize to as things it just is the normal operating system. But it's just the ability to go from thought to thing is evaporating, and as a creative person, that's super exciting because I'm more like I have a floodgate of ideas of things that I'm trying to get through, certain things that I lean into and really flesh out, and certain things that I just let do all of like, where's the technical friction that is just not my interest or I used to have to pay somebody else to do, and if it's at risk of never happening, that it could just not happen. So I think there's going to be a proliferation of form fit everything. I wrote this article on LinkedIn about adaptive media and, canon systems and, the architecture around the models that will shape world building that will shape, you know, uh, adaptive, tailored, branded content, story content. If five of us are in the room watching a show together where that canon adapts itself around like the amalgamation of the five of us to create, personalized, if we're talking content, software is going to be highly adaptive rather than these bloated, SaaS products. It's going to be like, specifically um, what's our bottlenecks and our friction points, and there's going to be services and tools that quickly spin up adaptive software in real time to just solve our own problems. So I think it's going to be harder and harder to build and sell like SaaS tools and systems, to be creating one piece for larger audiences. I think a lot of that's shifting. I think the role of the creative is shifting to being more of the world builder, rule definer for the canon systems. Um, Yeah, I think a lot of those shifts are going to happen.
Very cool.
Okay,
Right.
I'm gonna switch gears. We'll come back to questions in a bit. Just
I know, Daniel, you have your hands up, but I wanted to see if we could do a Q&A at the end as we complete Kyle's presentation.
sweet. So, this is one quick thing. So, because there are different systems now, and it's like, which one's the right one? Well, there's trade offs with each of them. I'm finding myself as a director of these models having to like copy, paste, take, put in here. And so the systems and tools aren't really talking to each other. So the other night I built a virtual chat room that pipe into different tools and platforms. So, for example, this Hitchcock one is my OpenClaw that's connected to all of the different tools and instructions and everything that OpenClaw would be connected to. And this is my orchestrator, right? My orchestrator of the other ones. My Claude code that's connected to stuff that's happening on my computer, and I have shaped more towards like deeper reasoning is happening here. I have one called Houdini, which is what I'm using Perplexity computer. I'm going to show that one in a second. It's a new favorite, but it's too expensive overall. Where it also is kind of a mirror of Hitchcock, so kind of double over, and a little bit of well, $200 a month is just how to have access to the tool. I'm going to talk about this in a second. So yeah, so I have this one that's talking to Perplexity computer, and then I also have like Perplexity sonar, which is like deep research. So what happens is they're all, Hitchcock is running on a heartbeat or is listening to be tagged on Slack. Once it is triggered, it then processes and it will flag me, or it will tag if there are any of these other ones that need to run a process. So the orchestrator will tag Claude in order to do Claude processes, or it will tag. I had one under here where it was tagging Perplexity to do like deep research. And so like once something is tagged, it then does that work, comes back, re-tags Hitchcock. Hitchcock reviews it. If Hitchcock wants to go deeper, it'll re-tag, and it could do it up to 6 full cycles where they're just kind of going back and forth talking to each other. So one that, and then I couldn't sleep, so I was like, how else can I like play with this idea of these agents? So I built like the fun like video game version of it. So like if I'm talking to Hitchcock here, you'll see that I'm talking, and then or if I'm talking to Perplexity, um and then it will go and do the work. So yeah, it was just like a fun different way. And then I also, as this was building, I built the mobile app version so I could talk to all my agents in the same chat room on the go. And I essentially was in Claude Code and turned it on caffeine mode, where I just bypassed all permissions, gave it my intent, and then I hopped on a call. It was an hour call. I came back and the app was like full one shot, totally worked. So that was cool. All right, so switching gears. This is Perplexity computer. If you go to search, you have the normal catch up. So you have like the normal search bar here, and then you have a new tab called computer. They call them tasks, but it's essentially their agents. So each one of these is a different Perplexity agent. It's running a series of steps. So, for example, if I went into my Godfrey Reggio demystified agent, this is the one that has the context of all of my Notion related to client projects. So, like, for example, if I do like a slash command here and I say transcript for Godfrey, and then I drag this file to it, all I have to do is hit enter, and you'll see that, oh, yeah, see, this is what happens. That means I burned through like 50,000 credits already. But essentially what it does, oh, that's crazy. I had 5,000 this morning. So what it does is it runs through a script. This is a transcript. So I just do slash transcript. Then it runs through all of this. Step one, fill in this, extract all the to-dos. Step three, act on all the tasks that you can. So evaluate from this call, is there anything that you can do yourself? If so, do it. And also, I'm happy to slash command instructions. Um, and then also flags, like if I'm the owner or if Godfrey's the owner or if there's like a hybrid. And I'm going to show you an example of what happened. So it goes to Notion. This is its own board. I'm not tracking any of this, but it's tracking its own to-dos across all of the um, columns: due date, status, owner, next action, blocked reason, action log. And then I did one with this transcript. It took a call, it turned it into the overview, background, pain points, key metrics, engagement discussion, stuff that you could get from like a Fathom or you can get from or whatever you're using. But it did it in this way. It extracted the action items. In there, she referenced somebody to talk to. And so it took that and it created a new task of to reply to this because she gave an intro. And it assessed an outcome, the context, gave me a sample reply to give to him and what it's referencing. And then it went even further to do research on this person and in the context of me working with this person. So, like, what's the outcome? Here's a research brief about them, what they do, their business model, consulting opportunity for me. What are my talking points? For me and my role, how could I help them? What's the value of this engagement? Like, how could I think about pricing it? What to clarify before quoting? Like, all of this stuff. And I didn't tell it explicitly any of that. It just automatically did that based off of uh, the the call. Another version that I was using a lot more was prior to Perplexity is Manus. And actually, okay, real quick, let me go back to this. Sorry, I'm realizing I'm skipping over something here. I love Perplexity Computer. It's the most easy to use. However, $200, get access to the thing. They give you 10,000 credits as part of that $200. And there's currently a promo until April 1st where you get, I don't know why it's not loading, where you get an extra 35,000 credits. I burned through all those credits in the first week. And so to up my credit, and I'm not like doing a ton of work. I'm doing like medium level, once an hour, it runs its cron job kind of thing. So I don't know why this isn't even loading right now. Um, but essentially, you have to pay 200 to top up $200 for every 20,000 credits. So realistically, if you're using this as an ongoing copilot, you're going to be spending $500 to $1,000 a month on Perplexity. So even though I got it all set up, I'm like, I'm trying to figure out what's the better method. So that's why I'm also back on OpenClaw and trying to process it better. So I'm going to replace Perplexity Computer with the same functionality and more.
I
Um,
do wonder at that point about the economics. Like we're at sort of like anybody on this call is wowed by the innovation and the incredible, like this is what a new car felt like to someone having a horse and buggy someday back
yeah,
in the past. But like I wonder if that reality of the economics that like then when you use it for all the things that you suddenly discover you're capable of using it, does that just create an economic canyon of its of like we're back to these inequality debates of like, well
yeah.
then who can really afford to use this incredible hoverboard, you know?
Yeah, I think it's great to see like these are the real I believe. I don't know what their markup is, but I believe this actually is a reflection more on what the actual costs are with a help with a markup versus something like OpenAI that's heavily subsidized.
Well, that's what I mean is like, we're in this sort of like the $5 Netflix era, you
Yeah,
know, if we're drawing bad analogies to other moments, like that there's this moment of people gathering us as consumers and like, wow, it's all seems like so cool to play with. Free credit sounds good. Perplexity, bring it on until April 1st. But then there's at some point, Netflix needs to tell Wall Street we're a profitable business. And all of a sudden, Netflix is advertising on it. It's actually costs closer to $20 a month. I'm just saying,
any
like, it's
yep,
a dumb analogy, but I can't help but wonder either some breakthrough happens that chips are cheaper and smaller and NVIDIA saves our lives or something,
yeah.
or at some point these companies need to be profitable. You know?
Any tool or service coming online saying we're not going to charge you, indefinitely or whatever. Like, they're either like VC backed, and that's like the whole business model. and they're trying to crush everything else. It's not sustainable. It's just not sustainable. We only have 8 minutes left. I want to plow through some stuff.
And by the way, if you
This
have
was
time past 11, we do drift. It's up to you. And I know that I'd rather stick to the clock today. And I know that Evelyn had a question. And I don't want to ignore her. Do you want to
yeah,
quickly
yeah.
jump on that one? Yeah. Maybe Evelyn had a high five for us.
Okay.
Sometimes those hands are high fives. Go ahead, Kyle.
I'm just going to quickly show this one. So this is N8N. This is again like what's actually happening under the hood of most of these agents that are, vibe coding front ends, trigger all these processes. This is one I built when I was at Felix and Paul that essentially becomes a persona with a deep like character backlog. And then it thinks about what is it going to post today, comes up with ideas, evaluates those ideas, checks if any of those ideas have been published before on that profile. If not, and it passes all those hurdles, it then goes back, generates what the description is from the description, generates the image. I did one for ChatGPT and Higgs Field API, where it takes the prompt, generates the image, sends it to me to review. If I like it, it then continues for until it finally posts. And so this was an automated social posting bot. We created a swarm of them and then the secondary swarm that was also them, but listening to each other posting and then could auto comment on each other contextually. So this is what an agent looked like there. I have one because of all of these Viber projects. I've been tying to linear. So linear is like tracking features and bugs. I had it evaluate which ones AI could do. And so there's a tag for AI ready. And then it's tied to Claude code on a loop so that it can just run and bug squash all day long. Another big one, I could do a whole course on just this, but agentic browsing. So I love this is also why I'm paying $200 to Perplexity because I use this every day. It's changed how I browse the web. When we're building, especially, and it's telling you how you need to go and like go to Supabase and create these tables, or go to Vercel and set up this and grab this API key and do. I just copy and paste it here, and then it takes over the browser. It knows all the documentation of all the sites that it goes to. It figures it out. It clicks around and it does the work. So usually I have 4 or 5 agentic browsers going with instructions and I'm navigating back and forth between projects. But this has completely changed how I browse the web.
So it seems
Um,
like you're on the verge of convincing yourself that $200 a month of Perplexity computer might be worth it, or you're experimenting, you're exploring.
for the time being, I'm going to stay on Perplexity's $200 a month for all the reasons I wasn't using Perplexity Computer. And then I might use Perplexity Computer for their limited tokens. I'm just not going to burn $500 to $1,000 on all of the agentic tasks that we talked about.
And so the building is happening in Claude or perhaps in other settings, but the other attributes of it knowing you and the browsing, those things seem worth it. Of what? Because I'm on the cusp of throwing away $200 at Perplexity. I've been very intrigued by it.
And I
That's why.
wouldn't consider it throwing away because the ROI on the amount of time doing the things, like for example, things I don't find sacred is going into Supabase to create API keys and like tokens and like change values and all of that shit. Not for me. So like that's where I assign like the in-browser workers that also can work across tabs. So it can have context across tabs to work across each other. So I'm having it take information from and establish it into the other and build with the other. Again, I could do a whole other class just on agentic. Um, I'll give links to this super prompt builder. Give your intent. It'll give a massive starting prompt that looks something like this.
That's incredible.
Another
I
one
know
where
we're right
say
at
you don't,
time, and I feel like we're in your dilemma that you want to go spend more time with your llama, but now we're
yeah,
losing sleep with Kyle. I feel your energy here.
yeah. All right, so let me finish with this. So um, I've been building, an AI native startup. And I didn't mean to build a startup, but like I really hit on something that I struggle with, and I know a lot of us struggle with, and I just kept going and going and going since October. And this is a first peek. I'm going to show you real quick. But essentially, I have all those agents tied to all these dashboards, so that it's processing and helping support all of the things around the product. But can I show you the product real quick?
I would love to.
All right. Um, Okay, so this is called Futuro, and the idea is that we're generating all of these projects that there's very unique needs that Gen AI has around how we create and curate and organize and stay intact, especially collaborating with teams through the evolution of all of these assets into the right shots. So this is what happens. I'm going to quickly go through. So one, you could set up a project. What is the project that you're doing? What are the deliverables? When do they do? What are the milestones and the deliverables of the milestones? So it's a project manager around a project. You can put in your brand DNA, color swatches, fonts, logos, anything that the team would need to keep track of. Also the checklists, team visibility. So if you're the manager, you can turn on and off what the team can see. This is kind of table stakes. Where do you start with messy ideas on the canvas, arranging them around? A lot of companies are spending a lot of energy around like optimizing the canvas. And I think that's great for a certain way of working, but that's not how my brain processes. So as quickly as I can, I go from here and I'm like, okay, this is going to be my sequence. Now I'm going to curate shots. The majority of the work happens here. So shot by shot, you track what your piece is and the evolution of the status. So if I go into here, each shot becomes a little workspace where you can quickly curate, which version that you want. You can keep track of your story beats, dialogue, what's your image and video prompts. But then more so, like what's the status of this shot? Who's the owner of the shot? When's the shot due? You want to put a little Kanban timer to work on it. You can just keep track of the evolution of each shot. You can organize them into sequences. I want for sequences. Um, then you can curate it. Say you're working with a client and you don't want to give them a mess view. You could just give them a nice clean view to go through and give feedback and flag if they like it, if they need to fix it, change it. You can even run through. I built like a pre-editing tool, like an animatic viewer. So you can go here and just quickly see. Let me play it. Yeah, remember that? So play animatic. So you'd be able to just like get a sense of the piece in real time, um, just to see how it flows. You can like change the timing. You can change a lot of different variables about presentation, and then zoom out, and then you get the whole project all at once. So you can see like which ones are in progress, review, change from sequence and statuses, what's overdue, a different view of looking at all the shots. Looking at the team workload, activity, client notes, and then also the library. And I've been having a lot of fun around the library. So you like just quickly dump in all of your assets. I've been building like import bridges so you can like capture from like Higgs field. I'm gonna put in free pick, all the other ones. So you can quickly pull assets with all of its metadata for all the provenance tracking. But then I've been building all of the agentic stuff as tools inside of here. So you can go into one of these, you can run an analysis, and it will evaluate, here's everything that the AI told me about, what is happening within this asset, what shot type it is, colors, all of this intelligence, which helps for things like, say I don't remember the name of the thing, but I'm like, oh, I know it had a mustache. So it's like really smart search, and then all of these tools have horrible naming conventions. So you can do all of these have like multi LLM step processes happening underneath, but you can do like batch renaming that are intelligent of different categories, or batch organizing again, and it's evaluating based on the what's happening within the context of each of those assets. So it's just like a really super clear, simple way to stay organized, um, and manage a process and a team.
It's so interesting. I mean, I'm almost like, and Daniel, I see your hand up, and I know we're about to go, but I'll make sure we get your question. I'm almost imagining a version of these where I know a handful of us are all at this intersection of cloud code and filmmaking, and all of us are building these products, and it'll be its own interesting like QVC, um, to just see us all kind of in some ways learn from each other, perhaps, or maybe that's we'll all compete over the same customers. Who knows? But it's very interesting to see the instincts overlapping. This is a very advanced vision you've been building. Clearly, you're operating at a very interesting level of the best of agentic, and also knowing your clients and what they've been needing from you on the tools. I just think back to my first texting with you as I was just asking for help with a Midjourney prompt, and you were so generous then on just how to get a better character ref. And I love what the energy you brought today to share with us. It already feels like it's never enough. But Danielle, I know that you've been so helpful inside the chat, jumping into the space. You know what? Do you want to jump into your question? Go ahead.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Thanks so much. I feel like the AI bubble is gotten smaller. So the people who are using these tools has become, I think there's some chart floating around the internet, like 0.1% of the world population. So my question is more about that global context. You're in Ecuador, I think, right now. And so, this feels to me almost like 10 to 20 years away from being mainstream. But I'm curious what you're seeing just from your vantage point of, yes, we can do this today. The technology is advancing so quickly, but when will this feel like Wi-Fi, where it's everywhere and visible and you only notice it when it's not fast?
Great question. I think it's already here and invisible in a lot of ways. I mean, for example, we've been training LLMs for as long as we've been selecting crosswalks, buses, motorcycles to get into proving that we're human. We've been training LLMs. So I think in certain ways, it's already here and there. And also because if you spend a solid month in any of these types of communities, like Gen HQ is a great one, of like just like high level quality educational content. If you spend 1 month, you are drastically ahead of the majority of the people, enough to be able to start turning around and teaching it. So I think there's like a growing middle layer of the new IT worker. I mean, I've been capitalizing on this for 4 to 5 years, right? Helping people plug in their printer, helping people talk to ChatGPT, then helping people create an agent. It's like the more that you've developed enough of a skill set, you can turn around and go to the local, print shop company that has not touched AI. And so I think the speed at which the ubiquity is going to continue to speed up as everyday people learn enough to turn around and start to coach and consult the everyday mom and pop shop, like brick and mortar stores. I think the onboarding time is going to continue to accelerate because there's an opportunity to teach it and to go in there and let me help you set this up, right? And it's going to be like hyper niche focus where you can build out a pretty sizable month to month income just going down the street and walking into every store and helping them get on a system, whether they're actively using it themselves or it's working for them.
Super interesting. Vinay, I think you had your hand up.
Yes. Hey, Kyle. Thank you for the great presentation. My question was about, you spoke about tokens optimization and all that. What does your local hardware look like, and what does your cloud usage and consumption look like? Because if you're talking about deploying agents, especially if it goes beyond you and goes at scale, you have to look at the cloud deployment costs and all that as well. Could you talk a little bit about that and how you optimize around it?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I'm on a MacBook and most of the stuff that I'm using is all cloud based. I haven't been playing. When I was at Felix and Paul, we were doing some offline stuff on some really heavy machinery, but we were using like video models that were all, local. Um, all of the work that I'm doing through my MacBook is all cloud-based computing. For the models that I'm setting up offline, I'm using Hostinger, so I just have a VPS set up for a few bucks a month. So it's kind of like the hybrid between, I'm leveraging their operating power, but it's not fully online, cloud-based interface. Yeah, and I, take advantage of what's available, and then the more that you have specific needs around like security, if you're working on client projects, if you need to, have more protections and provisions around the types of information data you're dealing with, continue to go down that path of exploring, these offline solutions. But there's plenty of VPS, um, you know, that you can spin up, these instances that you can spin up to where you're not just having to use like the cloud browsers of these LLMs.
Thanks for the question, Vinay. And I know we're just over time. I'm just going to get everybody's questions. Evan, you've been patiently waiting. We'll do that last question.
Thanks, Fred. And Kyle, wow. I mean, just absolutely dazzling. And I loved what you said at the beginning. I wish we could have spent more time on that, even though everything that came after was amazing about how all this stuff is changing, what it means to be human, because we're sort of offloading parts of our cognition onto these sort of proxies. And like the flip side of that is that you alluded to this too. There just aren't enough hours in the day. There's always more things to build, more things to optimize. And you seem like you're very in tune, even though you're living 10 years in the future, with your sort of human side. I'd love to hear you talk about how you kind of manage the cognitive load and don't sort of climb up into your head too much, because this stuff can just become so all consuming.
You assume too much about me, my friend. Um, no, I mean, I was just telling my partner last night, I'm like, my brain hurts so because like, and it's, I'm a victim of my own curiosity, really, because I have 3 screens. If I have my phone doing stuff and my iPad, I have 5 screens, and then all of the desktops that I'm swiping back and forth, and then all of the tabs, and then like even last night, I was doing 3 different projects simultaneously where agentic browsing was happening, where Claude Code was happening, where, I was having to copy and paste and remember the status. It is kind of like muscle building, but it's also a path to burnout. So,
Yeah.
like, I'm also thank God I have a partner who's just like, "Get away from the screen and, like, let's go hike for the day." And it's one of those things where when you step away long enough from social media, even you've probably experienced this, where it's like, "Oh, wow, life is actually better without it." So that's kind of the experience that I kinda toggle back and forth. I get really wrapped up and excited. I feel electricity flowing through me. Ooh, what if? What it's like the little kid in me just gets to come out and I let them play. I don't shame him, right? Because this is a playful and thankfully a lot of my work is helping teach this. Do have to stay on the leading edge in order to teach groups or build systems. So as I'm dog fooding and playing myself, it also is supporting. So in my mind around justification, I'm okay doing it. But I do have to force myself to like say like, okay, this month I'm not going to build an agent for the sake of an agent. It has to tie specifically to this KPI. Like I do have on my dashboard my high level aim, my core goal, what's my monthly, what's my, and I will give myself constraints and boundaries, but I'm not perfect at it because it's such a
Hmm.
crazy time that I'm fluctuating between, do I have to stay at the leading edge or do I have to just pick a thing and make it work really well for me? There's no wrong answer, but it is mentally exhausting. So I think just it's a marathon at a race speed, at a sprint speed. So, figure out how to not burn out. Just, come back to your breath, come back to your body. I think a bigger thing that helped me, I read a book called Your Brain at Work, one of the best books I've ever read
Mm.
around or like orientation, prioritization, and when to put your mind to certain things. Super helpful. But like I'll carve out time for like the high level planning oriented stuff to the point where it gets into mode switching. I don't have to think about it as much. So I'll be a little more intentional around like how my brain processes information. Um, there was something else I was gonna say on that, but the other thing
Um,
I was gonna say is just trusting other parts of my brain where all of this work is very prefrontal cortex. Like I have
Mhm.
to look at the thing, I have to think about the thing, I have to respond to the thing. But when I'm trying to solve a problem or hit a goal, it is going outside and playing with my dog or going out and taking a walk or being really present with my partner where I'm like trusting that that goes back here and it's still working with the more heavier processing part of my brain. So when I come back around to it, it's unlocked, new connections, new ways of thinking about it. So, part of it is that.
I mean,
Love that. Thank you so
this
much.
is the existential kind of thing that people at this frontier have to reckon with. In all likelihood, this is a once in a generation opportunity for a lot of people to either even reboot themselves. Some people are like mid to late stage career people. Some people are at the front end of this. Um, I relate to like students at universities that are going through this, where I'm teaching, and at the end of the semester, I try to remind everybody that um, if you're going to be a great filmmaker, it's because you've lived an interesting life. It's not because you've studied the same data that everybody else has access to some degree. So I do think this is a very healthy way to end today as well. Just from my absorption is that like it's this fire hose we always interact with. But I was joking with Min earlier that there's this billboard that I drive by all the time in my neighborhood for Chat GPT that it's like a picture of a guy in a garage like working out. And I think it touches on what we're talking about here because allegedly they're pitching you that I think that billboard is saying, look, you have more time to do this. But I think what we just keep hitting the same point. I think most of us aren't, for better for worse. Maybe it's because of this amazing opportunity that we all recognize, and we should run towards it because it doesn't happen often that you have a chance to build an advantage for yourself or be a part of something special. But please sleep. We really should sleep more and maybe even exercise more. Maybe
Yeah.
I'm talking to myself here, guys. I don't mean to give anybody advice here. But if you have time for one last question, I'm sorry if I'm not pronouncing your name right. It says Ari.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yes. Hi, I'm Dominika. Aurelia, the second name. Hello. I wanted to ask a question about those agentic systems that you showed us an example of. Basically, when we talk about exception handling, how good those systems are in exception handling. You know, if there is, for instance, no intent, no information in the original intent about the answer, and we as the people who ask don't know this answer, how is it possible to check if the machine is going to take the route in which it will find this rare answer, you know, like for instance, a medical doctor is asking about a disease, yes, and the answer should be a rare type of disease, yes, but there's in the question, in the first you know, revelation of this problem, there's no clue that it could be a rare disease, you know. So how does those systems go about this, you know?
Yeah, let me play back just so I understand your question. So
Yeah,
yes, let me try. So it's all in the framing. So, for example, in this case, if you know that there might be an issue for it to flag that it might be a rare disease, not that you
yeah,
know what it is, but just that there is a possibility that it could be a rare disease. Part of
yeah,
the instruction is saying when you're evaluating and giving your response, you know, do a cross analysis on these variables. You know, one of which is this a rare disease, or what is the
mm-hmm,
likelihood for this to be a rare disease 1 through 10, and then evaluate your answer and why that's a good answer or not a good answer. And like you can even have it loop itself. There's a really cool like agent looping script where it kind of creates two versions of an agent, one who does something, one who rates it, and then based on that rating, it will then create what's a better iteration. It'll process it, it'll rate it, and it'll do like 3 loops of that. So
mm-hmm,
one of the 4 things that you could flag is, you know, rate how likely is this to be a rare disease, run through this process. So again,
yeah,
it's all about your ability to create the like that guiding framework, and then it'll develop its own path. You don't need
yeah. But the thing that is that I wanted to say that there is no clue in the framing that you are saying at the beginning, you know, about this rare disease, you know, because for instance, you know, you can overlook, yes, something, yeah. So as a human, you know, who's framing the problem. So uh, can we expect that the machine will somehow, you know, find out that there is this idea of rare disease, you know, in this context, you know? You understand me? When there is no, when the answer is so rare that we don't think about it at the first when we are asking a question. Yeah.
I think one of 2 things. One is do your damnedest to create the system and the model up front
Yeah.
and improve over time. And then the second is these models will continue to get better to infer, right? To be able
Hmm.
to create unexpected outcomes. For example, when I sent that transcript, it went how many layers deep of researching, processing, thinking about what useful means to me. Like, it did a number of things evaluating, like, the type of work I do and how much I charge and relative to them, and, like, I didn't map any of that. So I think
Mhm.
there's going to be, unexpected, like, results, and as you, the shaper, as these types of things come up, feed it into it and continue to, like, shape its, and then it's just gonna be a back and forth until it's, like,
Mhm.
surprising you. But yeah, I think it's a little bit of, you have some control and it's still a magical black box, and that black box is
Mhm.
just gonna continue to become uh, much more impactful and useful to get to this level of like reasoning and creativity and organization.
Mhm. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Dominic, for your question. I think some people in chat are also responding in case that helps you
Nice.
on your journey. I just feel bad when people have questions. I promise this is the last question. Alden, if you can keep it tight, because I think a lot of people have to
Yes.
go. Go ahead.
Thank you so much. I just had a quick fun question. Thanks for your presentation. Thanks for the custom GPTs. And what's your Burning Man camp?
Burners without borders.
Cool.
That's
Thank
a
you. Have a good
I love this question. Thank you, Alden. Sounds like you guys are going to hang out and do fun
Oh
stuff.
yeah, I just want to flag too, just because like this was a first peek. Obviously, there's a lot to come here on the Futuro front, but I was like, one, building it with some of you in the community and for people in the community. And yeah, if you guys are interested, go to futuro.so. Just put machine cinema, so I know that it's coming here, and I'm happy to give like once I turn on pricing, 3 months free. But up until then, happy to have some more beta testers if this would be useful in any like project development stuff.
Unbelievable. Love that. And if you don't mind, send me like a follow up with all the links to the custom GPTs and things you did
Yeah.
this today, and we'll make sure everybody gets them in the posting. But thank you, everybody. I mean, I kind of suspected it would have been a mistake to do a 20-minute shorter session because I just know what a generous educator you are, and just how much you have to say about these things. And I love even all these questions, how you lean in and really try to problem solve with us. Thank you, Kyle. Honestly, ongoing appreciate the friendship that you've always brought to this space, and thank you for coming today. Thanks everybody as always.
Yeah. Yep.
I'll just say this: I do my best to keep up with incoming ideas. Sometimes these are people I meet, or just people in my world, or there's a serendipity to the booking process here too. But if other people have ideas, again, I can't say that there's time for everybody. But please don't hesitate to reach out if there's anything that's being underrepresented, but there's not enough of that. That means a lot to us when we hear it from people. So please share ideas. Ideally nominate and introduce. Like, I don't give me homework to then go track somebody down on the internet, although I'm open to it. I'm just saying it's much easier when you introduce people. But again, I'll do my best to curate this and try to keep this interesting for everybody. Thank you, Kyle. Thank you, everybody. We will see you all next week. Take care, everybody.
Thanks,
Take care.
Kyle.
My pleasure.
Thank you. Bye.